Hello, lovely people. Today, finally, we're going to be talking about a mic array. So in this video, it's going to be like an introductory video where I'm going to try to explain what is a mic array, why do we need it, how much does it cost, because nobody's talking about prices anywhere, but I'm going to tell you literally everything that you need to know about microphone arrays. But before we talk about mic arrays, we need to kind of go back and start with the simple stuff. So the simplest piece of equipment that you can get for tuning a car is something like this, which is a USB microphone. So this is a mini DSP UMIC 1, and it's a plug and play option. So you have a USB port, you plug it in, you plug the other end into the laptop, and you can take measurements just like that straight away. No fuss, no nothing. So when you tune a car, what you can do, you can take different kinds of measurements, and those measurements are made in different ways. So one of the simplest ways is just stick a microphone like in some kind of a holder on the headrest and have it stationary and do sweeps or RTA or whatever you want. The other option is to use what we call a moving microphone method. Basically, it is you have your microphone plugged in, you do spatial averaging on RTA, and you move the microphone around your head. And basically what you do in the time that it takes you to take like 100 averages or something, you're taking an average of the responses around your listening area, around your head. Now, why do we need to do that? Because a car is kind of a small closed compartment, and reflections, especially at high frequencies, influence that sound, how we perceive it. So it's not the same like in home audio when you have like, 10 feet until the speakers. Like in a car with all the reflected areas like glass, windshield, dashboard, the door panels and everything is reflected, everything. So that's why we need to take a spatial average of the whole like car interior. And the best way to do it is, as I mentioned, just move the microphone. If you have one, just move the microphone around and you take like measurements from different points in space. And in the software, I use RUW, it kind of averages out and gives you one response, included all those reflections. Now, if you want to step up the game, especially if you want to do some phase measurements, what you have to do is upgrade the microphone to an XLR. So XLR has a different type of connections. I do have a separate video about the measure microphones. You can check it out. So it goes into more detail. For this microphone, you need an audio interface. So the most popular one probably is this one, which is a Scarlett 2i2. So it's a two input audio interface. And what you do, you have just a cable, you plug the cable in, you have the microphone at the other end, and you can do exactly the same thing as with this one. However, with the audio interface, you can do phase measurements as well with the loopback. But that's another thing. I'm going to make another video about the loopback. Now, the biggest drawback to like moving microphone method is that it's user dependent. That means that it depends how you move the microphone around your head. It's kind of not consistent in between the measurement. It is if you take loads of averages. If you take like 500 averages around that area, is going to be fine. But if you take less, it's inconsistent. So what you need to do is take the human factor out of the equation altogether and basically remove the moving part from taking the measurements. And you do that with multiple microphones. So the other way, if you have only one microphone, what you can do is you can have it stationary, take a sweep, move it, take a sweep, move it, take a sweep, move it, take a sweep, and then all those sweeps in the software, you average it, and you have kind of an average RTA response. However, that takes a lot of time. It would be very cool if you could take different points of space, measurements from those different points at the same time, and you do that with a microphone array. So the most popular microphone array in the world, and the most known in car audio, is the JL Max. However, the JL Max cost a fortune. And I always wanted to try a microarray. However, obviously I cannot afford it. So I was looking for some cheaper options. Now, the cheaper option is to get like everything separate and try to find a software that works, because not all softwares work with multiple inputs. So this one, as I mentioned, is a 2-input audio interface. What we need to do, if you want to use more microphones, we need to kind of scale it up. So we need a audio interface that has more inputs. And this is one of those interfaces. So this is a Roland Octacapture, and what it has 4 inputs on one side and 4 on the other side. So basically it has 8 microphone inputs. There are other interfaces that has same inputs. So one of them is Scarlett, Focusrite Scarlett, which is, I think it's 18i10 or something. It basically has much more inputs. And there's another one by Behringer, and Behringer is a cheaper option. So this is kind of middle of the road. If we're talking about the prices now, let's talk about the prices. The cheapest Behringer that I saw on secondhand market, which is Facebook Market, costs you about 100 to 150 pounds, which is like probably up to like $200 or something. This one I bought on eBay for 200 pounds, so a bit more expensive. And the Focusrite would cost you about 300 to 350 pounds. Used, that's secondhand used, because I wanted to use as cheap as possible. So I paid 200 for this, but brand new obviously is going to be probably twice as more expensive. Now the microphones, I have a bunch of them, so I keep them like this. And what I did, I bought a bunch of Behringer. So these are the Behringer ECM 8000. These are probably the cheapest microphones that you can get. In the UK, they cost £30 a piece, depending where you find them. So, quantity of the microphones. One is not enough, obviously. The more microphones you have, the better it is. However, there's a law of diminishing returns. So the optimal, and what it's the same what JL Max has, is 7 microphones. You can have 5 as well, but 7 is kind of the optimal. And since audio interfaces, some of them are 8 or 10 inputs, it kind of makes sense to use 7. So you use 6, like this is like a typical layout where you have 6 on the sides and 1 central one, so 7 microphones. And this is 8 inputs, so you have 7 for the microphones and 1 for the loop back to measure the phase with the central. And just very quickly touching the phase measurement with the central microphone. So the surrounded ones are measuring the response and kind of averaging it out. The central microphone is used for measuring phase with the loop back. We do exactly the same with this one and an XLR microphone, so you can have a single microphone, then the loop back, and you're measuring like the phase. So with the USB microphone, you cannot you can measure phase, but you cannot really tune between the drivers with the phase. There is a workaround. If you go to RTA in cars, there is a guide made by Peter Hermans. Sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. That made a PDF file with instructions how to do like phase alignment with a USB microphone. It does take quite a few extra steps and it's a bit finicky and tricky, but the easiest way is to do it with the loop back. So the microphone again allows you to do phase measurements as well. So you have the central microphone, which is kind of situated in the middle of your head, and you phase align the drivers with this reference point. Now, you cannot have an average phase. You can have only an average RTA response, which is a frequency response. But the phase has to be done with a one single microphone. So my plan is either to use REW to learn how to use phase, because I don't measure phase with REW, I use home impulse, or I'm going to be using home impulse for phase measurements. But again, you just have a microarray and you don't move anything, and you measure phase with this one and the frequency response all around it. So as I mentioned, let's go back to the prices. These are £30 each. So I bought 7 of them. 7 times 30 is like 210. Another thing that you need is something to connect everything with. You can DIY a cable. However, it is cheaper to buy something like this, which is a snake cable. Let me just very quickly undo this just to show you. It's a 3 meter long, which is what, 10 feet or something like that. And basically you have one big cable that splices into 8 smaller ones. So each of these you can connect a microphone. Yeah. So imagine like this. And the other end, you have the other plugs that connect into your interface, just like that, one by one. So I will be using 7 of them, and one is going to be just, I don't need it, but still. So 8. So for a microarray, you need a audio interface, you need some microphones, and you need an actual array to hold the microphones. You can DIY stuff, or you can buy, kinda, maybe, I don't know. So this one was sent to me by Eric. Thank you very much again. Eric, if you're watching this, just pop a comment under the video and tell them how people can contact you or how can they get this lovely thing. So this is an array that he did. This is the 3D printed side, and this is kind of assembled. So what it does, it clips into your headrest, and you can adjust like the height, the angle, and everything, whatever you want. And the best part of it, these are kind of interchangeable. So I do believe Eric offers like a few different options for the actual layout, because the layout can vary. So this is like, if you're looking from the front, this is how it looks like. The other way, you could put it like sideways, like this. So you would have like more broad view, and it varies how you want to do this. So you can have different multiple options, and you can print these themselves yourself, I would imagine, if you have a 3D printer. But yeah, so basically you need a microarray to hold all of the 7 microphones. Now, you notice that 6 are on the sides and 1 in the middle. So the 6 on the sides is basically to take the spatial average. Imagine if you have that same USB microphone and you use the moving microphone method and you wave it around in 8, in arcs, or whatever you do, you're kind of covering the same area around your head. Or if you do like this, if you do like, so it's kind of the same. It just takes the human factor out of the equation. Now, yes, the microphone array costs more than this one, because this one, prices again, this one costs $100, maybe less. It depends where you buy it. If you buy something like an XLR microphone plus a simple audio interface for this, is gonna cost you probably like few $100s, so twice as more. Again, I'm using secondhand prices because I don't buy brand new stuff. These, you can obtain them super cheap because these are widely used in home studios, and people constantly upgrade and everything, so they go very cheap. You can find them literally anywhere. So twice as more. Now, the microarray. The total cost for the microarray is, in UK currency, when I bought it, is about £500. So the audio interface is £200. The microphones is another £200. This one, I don't count the price for this, because I personally got it as a I don't know, a review sample, I want to say. So, and you can DIY a stand with PVC pipes, with like wood, or it's just with anything. If you're into a microarray, you can do this by yourself. So I'm not gonna include the price of the actual holder, because it's easy to DIY it. Another thing is the software. So let's talk about the software. You have a few options. There's not many of them. You cannot use your microarray with JL Tune software, because JL Tune software with a microarray, it's kind of connected with a Max, and they sell it as a package. So with a Tune, you can use a simple USB microphone or like audio interface with one, but it won't let you have multiple inputs to do a average, such as this audio interface. So you can use it with a single mic, but you cannot use it with multiple mics. The other option is OSM, which is Open Sound Meter, which is a freeware, and it can do spatial averages and live phase. That's free, but it is a bit finicky. I didn't use it much. I tried, but it's again another software to learn. The most popular software is going to be Smart. However, that one cost, last time I checked, is like 170 or 180 pounds a year, the subscription, or like close to £1,000 if you want to buy the whole like software package. So it is kind of an expensive. And I decided to use REW. So REW has a pro license that allows you to have multiple inputs for a microarray. And that costs $100 or something like 70 to 80 pounds, depending on the exchange rate. So I paid, I think, 78 pounds for the Pro version, and that allows me to use REW. Now, I will be using REW and I will show you the whole tuning process, how to do this. As I mentioned, this is just an introductory video just to tell you what is a microarray, how we use it, how much it costs, and that kind of stuff. And the next videos will be about the actual usage of the microarray. So let's talk about a few pros and cons of a microarray. The biggest pro for a single microphone or a USB microphone is simplicity. The only thing you have to do is plug one end here, the other one into the laptop, and you can use it. You go into the car, you wave it around, and you take measurements. It's simple to use. Now, microphone array, it's a bit more complicated because you have kind of the same, just times 7. You have 7 microphones, you have 7 cables. For this one, you need an external power block, so it doesn't work from USB. So you need a power source. I think the Scarlett and others are the same because they need more power because there's more stuff to power, because they do use the phantom power, 48 volts. So to power 2 microphones, USB is kind enough, but to power 7 or 8, not really. So you need an external power supply. Then you have this bloody snake cable that you have to run. And you have this, and when you have to like plug everything in, set up everything, it's not as simple. So simplicity-wise, a single microphone is going to always win. Now, so the question then arises, why do we need a microphone array? The microphone array, it allows you to take extremely consistent measurements. That means if you adjust the microphone like array, the holder, however you want, the only thing you need to do is to clip it into the headrest. And if you tuning cars for a living and you want extremely consistent results between different cars, you're working on cars like one car in, out, in, out. The only thing, when you set up everything, you just clip it in place and make the measurements. You remove it, clip it into another car and make the measurements. And the layout and everything, it stays exactly the same. And the measurements, if you take 2 measurements of the same driver or whatever, 2 different periods of time, they're going to be identical because nothing is moving. With the moving microphone method, it's going to vary very, very slightly because you're not going to move the microphone exactly the same way during 2 different measurements. You know, that's the human factor. So just to get rid of it, you have this. Now, another positive side about a microphone array is that you don't have to be in the car while you're taking the measurements. When you have a single microphone, you wait around, you sit in the driver's seat, and you are actually there. So you have to sit in a car and listen to pink noise. You can use like earplugs and stuff, but you still have to listen to it. When you use a microphone array, if you have a long enough cable, so this snake cable, as I mentioned, is like 10 feet long. You can buy it much longer and you don't have to sit in the car. You can have a table outside with multiple displays and just sit comfortably in a chair, don't listen to any pink noise, and you can tune it from there. So this is a big positive. Now, it is a positive in some countries and kind of a negative in other countries. So, for example, one of my friends, Peter from Malaysia, he like I always ask him, "Oh, did you tune your car? Did you tune your car?" When he was kind of tuning it kind of constantly. It's like, and he was like, "Oh, it's not. It's just too hot. I cannot sit in the car. I have to run AC. I have to run the engine on. It's uncomfortable. It's too hot. I cannot sit in the car." Now, in hot countries or in hot states in the US, like I don't know, Texas, Florida, whatever, when it's just too hot to sit in the car, pop the micro in the car and sit outside in the garage or whatever. You don't have to be in there. Now that is a plus in hot countries. In cold countries such as in UK, it's a negative because unless you have a heated garage, I work outside. I don't have a garage. I work on the driveway. Yeah. So for me, like at this time of year, it's cold. I cannot be outside. I'm gonna freeze to death. So for me personally, like at this time, I would prefer to sit inside the car instead of being outside. Now, you can work inside the car with a microphone already. You just put everything in and just work there. So this is kind of a, thing. Now, another thing to mention is calibration of the microphones. So when you have a UMIC or something, all of them have a serial number that you go online and you can get a calibration file for that specific microphone. Now, I cheaped out on these microphones. You can get something like Dayton, EAMM, or more expensive options like Sonarworks or whatever, but those cost like, I don't know, $100, $200, $300 per microphone times 7. That gets expensive really, really fast. So the cheapest options are these Behringers. They are not calibrated. So the other extra step that I will have to make, and I will make a video about this, is to calibrate these microphones, because I do have 7 of them, and none of them are calibrated. So they do measure slightly different from each other. And with a microphone array, my personal opinion is that you don't need to have each microphone to measure extremely perfect, linear, and flat. What you want is all the microphones to measure exactly the same. So my idea is, I'm gonna have this UMIC because it has a calibration file. So this is gonna be my reference, and I will calibrate all other 6 microphones, 7 actually, to the UMIC response, and I'm gonna make a separate video how to do that. So I will kind of have a DIY calibration file for each of those microphones. And that's the thing, when you go to the software, you're gonna have to load 7 different calibration files for each of those microphones, so they are named. The cables are named as well, the inputs are named, and that's an extra step in the software. So it is a bit more preparation to do. However, when everything is done and you just pull stuff in and out of the car, it's easier. And I think that pretty much covers the microphone array introduction. So the next video, as I mentioned, is going to be the calibration of these microphones. I'm going to show you how to take measurements, how to calibrate it in REW, how to make the calibration files and everything. And the video after that is going to be the actual setup. We're going to see what to plug where, how to install this in the car, and then we can actually tune. And then the plan is for me to compare the tunes done by a microphone array and with a moving mic method, and just like subjectively how different does it sound, and as well just to go through the workflow, which one is easier, which one is fast, and that kind of stuff. Because I imagine especially with the software updates that Helix had and REW has, the microphone array is going to be just a breeze to work through. Take the measurements much faster and do the changes much faster. So we will see. But yeah, there's going to be a few upcoming videos about this mic array. We're going to use it, actually. We're going to tune it. And I would like to hear your opinions and experiences. If you have a mic array, just comment. Did it help you to improve your workflow? Is it faster? Is it simpler? And how do you compare it with a single microphone? Because I guess a lot of people have this like dilemma. Should I buy a JL Max, or should I invest in this and buy something like Smart or maybe RUW Pro, or should I just stick with just a single microphone? Because probably you notice that online a lot of professionals nowadays kind of try to drift into the microphone arrays, especially the Max, and some of the professionals still stick with a single microphone and they swear by it that whatever you can do with a single microphone, you can do the same with a mic array, but for some people it's just faster because they're used to it. So yeah, I would like to hear your opinions as well about single mic versus mic array. What do you think about it? Which one do you, if you use both, which one do you prefer? And if you're planning to have a mic array, how do you think will this investment kind of benefit you and your workflow? Because I can tell you straight away, for a hobbyist, for a DIYer that tunes only its own car, it's like, is this like me? Is just to play around, because I know I'm not gonna really benefit from it, because for me it's all about experimenting, all about trying new things. I don't have cars coming in and out of my driveway that I have to tune like one or two multiple cars per day. So yeah, I would like to hear your opinions as well, and we will tune with this. I'll just need to see when I'm gonna find some time for it. So I think that's it. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one.